So I've come here to the Worcester Bosch Training Academy to find out about installation errors. And it might surprise you to know that the vast majority of calls carried out by their engineers actually find no fault at all. And of course it's always very embarrassing for the installer and a huge waste of everybody's time when you find that the problem is just a simple installation fault. So let's have a look at those installation faults, see exactly what they are. The second most common fault is to do with external wiring, and this is how you get the power to the boiler. Now the way the boilers are designed, the power should be fed into the boiler first and then out to the external controls. If you wire up the external controls and then feed the power to the boiler from the external controls, then there can be a situation where the boiler is switched off, but you're still getting a live supply from the external controls to the boiler. Now in certain situations this can be dangerous because the engineer will assume that when he switched the boiler off that the system is powered down. I'll just show you what I mean here. With the power switched off, you can see that we take the external supply from the fuse spur through into the live and neutral here. Then it goes via the fuse out to the programmer through the LS and then back from the programmer through the LR terminal. So that means that this fuse controls the whole system. If this fuse goes, the whole system goes dead. Now it might sound obvious, but another fault that you get with gas boilers is the gas supply. It needs to be big enough, and very often people overlook this fact that you need anything around sort of 20 millibars of working pressure. Now I emphasize working pressure because sometimes people just check the static pressure and assume that it'll be okay. And of course when the cooker comes on, the boiler dies, or when the boiler comes on, the cooker goes out. So you need to check the supply is big enough to supply all the gas appliances simultaneously. Now I know it's a pain because sometimes this might mean that you've got to upgrade the pipe even to 28 millimeters. But if it's got to be done, it's going to save you an awful lot of trouble in the future to do it when you do the installation. Modern fluing systems allow you an almost infinite number of variations and possibilities. But of course you must check the manual to make sure that you don't exceed the maximum permissible length. And this means checking and counting every single elbow that's in the system. Now we all know that when you're fitting flues you can get sometimes a little bit of a tussle with them, and it can cause the internal connection to come adrift, to come out of its socket. There's one seal at the bottom and there's one seal at the top. Before you fire the boiler up, just check that these are actually in place, because if they're not, what you sometimes find is the boiler will only work when the front cover's removed or you get a lockout fault. High efficiency boilers mean condensate, and that means condensate waste, and it's got to be run away. Now for most plumbers that shouldn't cause any problem at all, because 3/4 inch overflow pipe, we can almost run that in our sleep. But it's where we run it and how we terminate it that makes all the difference. If you get a blockage in the condensate pipe or it freezes up on a cold morning, then you're going to cause a lockout in the boiler. Ideally, you would run the condensate waste internally into an internal trap. If you have to run it externally, make that external run as short as possible and make sure it's insulated. There's a whole range of fittings to help you run the condensate away, so if you just think about it and look at the possibilities, you shouldn't have any trouble. A lot of the call-outs that Worcester Bosch engineers attend turn out to be nothing to do with the boiler, they turn out to be mix-ups with the pipework. Now it sounds like a schoolboy error, but every plumber has got a story of somebody that connected up the gas to the water or vice versa, or even got the flow and returns the wrong way round. And of course a lot of this happens when we're doing boiler swaps. When you take the old boiler off the wall, you must remember to label up the pipework clearly. And of course when you fit the manifold, it's all labelled up clearly, so you should know exactly where everything goes. The key thing is to be methodical. With sealed systems and combination boilers, a lot of people suffer from loss of water pressure. Now very often the plumber will tell the customer how to top it up to save them going round, but of course constantly topping up boilers is not good for the boiler and it's not good for the heating system. So we have to try and solve the problem. Now sometimes it can be that the system is too big for the boiler. In other words, the expansion vessel inside is not big enough. to cope with the number of radiators on the system, so you have to add an extra expansion vessel. Sometimes it can be something as simple as the pressure relief valve letting by slightly, periodically. Sometimes it's a leak, but whatever it is, you must find it. Earth bonding is an essential safety requirement, and of course nobody wants to see it above their worktop, but it must be visible, and of course if you do it properly, it can also be very neat. Bosch boilers have been carefully designed to try and protect the internal PCB and controls from water damage. Now the fact that the pipework is connected underneath the boiler helps an awful lot, but if you're going to run the pipework up behind the boiler, make sure that you don't have vulnerable connections made just above the boiler, which might cause a leak down inside the boiler, because that kind of damage can be very expensive to repair. Other common faults reported are that the boiler hasn't been fitted as per manual, that no inhibitor has been used, or there's a dirty system, or the system hasn't been flushed, or that the system is airlocked. The expansion vessel has not been connected correctly, thermostatic radiator valves fitted have not been done to standard, or there is a system fault. A part's not connected to the boiler, or that they're broken. The filling loop left still connected or leaking. The pressure relief valve not terminating correctly. The arm of the pressure relief valve broken during installation. Debris found in the diverter or flow turbine. Unsafe installation or installation errors. Combustion mixer fully tight or the settings have been altered. And no mini expansion vessel fitted when required.